What if everything you know vanished in minutes? No warning, no escape, just darkness, freezing cold, and endless hunger. After a nuclear war, the real battle begins. Surviving a world where sunlight is blocked, crops fail, and radiation poisons everything. Can humanity endure, or will civilization collapse forever? Let's uncover the terrifying truth. Immediate blast and firestorm effects. Think about this. A blinding flash, hotter than the surface of the sun, instantly vaporizing everything within miles. That's the immediate blast of a nuclear explosion. If you were standing in a city like New York or Shanghai, you wouldn't have time to blink before the shockwave hit. The force is so intense that it crushes buildings, shatters glass, and throws debris like deadly missiles. But the blast is just the beginning. Next comes the firestorm. Visualizing a raging inferno so massively, it creates hurricane-force winds, sucking oxygen from the air and turning entire city blocks into ash. This isn't just a fire. It's a self-sustaining monster that feeds on everything combustible. The sky darkens with thick black smoke, and the heat is so intense it melts steel and concrete. If you were caught in this, there would be no escape. The firestorm would burn for hours, swallowing everything in its path. Here's the twist. These firestorms don't just destroy locally. They send plumes of black carbon soot soaring tens of kilometers into the stratosphere. Scientists call these pyrocumulonimbus clouds, gigantic smoke columns that can linger for years. A massive layer of soot blankets entire continents, blocking sunlight for up to 10 years in the upper atmosphere, plunging the Earth into chilling, prolonged darkness. Pyrocumulonimbus clouds and soot injection. You might be wondering, what exactly happens when those firestorms pump soot into the upper atmosphere? Well, think of it like this. Normally, sunlight warms the Earth's surface, powering everything from crops to ocean currents. But when black carbon soot from firestorms rises tens of kilometers above the Earth, it acts like a giant shade blocking sunlight. Recent climate models show that this soot can stay in the stratosphere for up to 10 years. That's a decade of dimmed sunlight, cooler temperatures, and disrupted weather patterns. It's like someone pulled the world's thermostat way down without warning. This isn't just a theory anymore. In the last few years, scientists at universities like Colorado and Princeton have run detailed simulations confirming that the soot from nuclear firestorms could block as much as 70% of sunlight over major farming regions. Your local grocery store shelves go bare, not because of panic buying, but because crops cannot grow without sunlight. That's the power these pyrocumulonimbus clouds unleash. The science of nuclear winter. So what does this block sunlight mean for the planet? It means nuclear winter term that sounds like something from a sci-fi movie but is terrifyingly real. Think about this. Surface temperatures drop by 5 to 15 degrees Celsius in the mid-latitudes, where most of the world's population lives. This sudden cooling disrupts monsoons, ocean currents, and jet streams. The weather is going haywire. Farmers would find their growing seasons shortened or wiped out completely. Monsoons that billions depend on could fail, turning fertile lands into dust bowls. Oceans would cool, altering fish migrations and collapsing marine ecosystems. This is not a temporary blip. It's a multi-year climate disaster that could last a decade or more. And here's the kicker. This nuclear winter effect would hit hardest in the very places that produce the majority of the world's food. Without sunlight and stable weather, global agriculture would collapse, leaving billions starving. Agricultural collapse and global hunger. You probably think food is something you can always count on, but after a nuclear war, that certainly disappears fast. Modern agriculture depends heavily on fossil fuels, for fertilizer, diesel for tractors, and complex supply chains to get food from farms to tables. After a nuclear exchange, these supply chains would break down. Fertilizers, which mostly come from natural gas, would become scarce. Without fertilizer, crops produce far less food. Studies show that even a limited nuclear war, like one between India and Pakistan, could reduce global crop yields by 15 to 30%. But a full-scale war between major powers like the United States and Russia, that could slash yields by as much as 90%. Think about that for a second. 90%. That means billions of people would face starvation. And it's not just crops, livestock would suffer too. Without feed and clean water, animals would die off. The global food web would unravel, pushing humanity into a famine unlike anything we've ever seen. Radiation and fallout. Now think of you who survived the blast and the raging firestorm. You step outside thinking the worst is over, but the real nightmare is just beginning. Invisible, silent, and everywhere, radioactive fallout starts drifting down, coating everything in deadly dust. You take a breath. That air is filled with particles that can slice through your DNA like tiny daggers. Within hours, your body starts to betray you. First, you feel nauseous. Maybe you think it's just shock or fear, but then the vomiting hits. Your skin begins to redden, almost like sunburn, but this is no ordinary burn. It's the earliest sign that your cells are dying from the inside out. The most sensitive parts of your body, your skin, your gut, your bone marrow, are under attack. Your blood cells start to vanish, leaving you defenseless against infection and bleeding. If you absorb a high dose, your hair falls in clumps, your mouth fills with ulcers, and your immune system collapses. But radiation doesn't stop there. Even if you escape the worst in the first few days, the long-term effects can haunt you for years. Damaged DNA means cancer risk skyrockets. Mutations can linger, affecting not just you but your future children. Some effects might not show up for decades. So, as you walk through the ruins, remember that the deadliest threat is the one you cannot see, taste, or smell. And there's no easy way to know if you've already absorbed a fatal dose. Geopolitical flashpoints and escalation. Do you think the world's tense now? That's nothing compared to what happens when nuclear-armed countries start playing chicken. India and Pakistan have been building up their arsenals, each one convinced they need just a few more warheads to feel safe. But safety is an illusion. One border skirmish, one political miscalculation, and suddenly you're not watching the news, you're living it. The sky glows, the ground shakes, and millions of lives are erased in a flash. But that's just the start. The fallout doesn't matter about borders. Crops in Africa wither, children in Southeast Asia go hungry, and the world's food system starts to buckle, all because the two countries couldn't back down. And then you've got big players, United States, Russia, China. Russia and NATO are still locked in a Cold War staring contest, fingers hovering over the launch button. China's been doubling its nuclear stockpile, now over 500 warheads strong. That's not just a number, it's a threat that hangs over everyone's head. One false alarm, a radar glitch, and the planet could be on fire before breakfast. Our arm control treaties, those are falling apart. New weapons, new strategies, new ways to end the world. When you see politicians on TV talking tough, remember they're not just bluffing for votes, they're gambling with humanity's future. And you're in the pot. Long-term recovery and civilization collapse. Now, talk about what happens after the dust settles, if it ever does. The cities are gone. The power grid is a memory. Governments collapsed. The world you know is over. You wake up every day to a sky that's dark and cold. Even in summer, temperatures drop by 10, maybe 20 degrees Celsius. That's enough to freeze rivers, kill crops, and turn whole countries into iceboxes. You're not worrying about your phone battery. You're worrying about freezing to death in July. Hospitals are shut, clean water is a luxury, and every cough could be the start of something deadly. Some scraps of knowledge survive in digital vaults or seed banks like Svalbard, but who's left to use them? The internet is gone, most books are burned, and the people who remember how to rebuild themselves are scattered or dead. Scientists and ethicists argue, will survivors rebuild the same mess or try something new? Maybe artificial intelligence could help keep peace, or maybe it'll just be another tool for the next round of destruction. Rebuilding isn't just about bricks and roads, it's about trust, cooperation, and learning from the nightmare you just lived through. Psychological and cultural trauma. After the bombs fall and the fires die down, the scars you can't see start to take hold. The psychological trauma from surviving a nuclear war is unlike anything you've ever experienced. It's not just fear or grief, it's a deep, gnawing sense of loss and helplessness that lingers for years. Families torn apart, communities shattered, and a world that no longer feels safe. Survivors would face nightmares, anxiety, and depression on a massive scale. Each day is haunted by memories of the blinding flash, the screams, and the ash falling like snow. Children grow up orphaned, entire generations marked by loss and trauma. Culture itself would fracture. Art and music are traditionally disrupted or destroyed. The stories people tell would change, shaped by trauma and survival. Some might cling to hope, others to anger or despair. The way societies remember nuclear war would influence whether future generations seek peace or repeat the same mistakes. The psychological wounds could last longer than the physical ones, shaping humanity's future in ways we can barely predict. Preventing nuclear catastrophe. What can we do? So, what now? Knowing all this, how do we stop it from happening? The good news is efforts to reduce nuclear risk are underway, and you can be part of it. Organizations like ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, are pushing for treaties to eliminate nukes. The Nuclear Threat Initiative works to reduce the chance of accidental launches. Groups like the Future of Life Institute and Open Philanthropy fund research into nuclear risk and global safety. But it's not just governments and experts. Young people are changing the narrative with movements like the Nuclear Narrative, aiming to reframe how we think about nuclear weapons, from abstract threats to urgent, personal dangers. Education platforms like Earth 2030 use simulations to show what a nuclear war would mean, making it harder to ignore. Preventing nuclear catastrophe means staying informed, supporting disarmament, and pushing leaders to prioritize peace. It's a global effort, but it starts with you. What do you think life would really look like after a nuclear war? Could humanity survive the darkness, hunger, and silence? Share your thoughts and fears in the comments below, and don't go anywhere just yet. Soon, we'll take you on another mind-bending what-if journey, maybe exploring a world where time flows backward, or a planet with oceans made of liquid methane. So stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop wondering what the future might hold.